April 12th, 1944, 0521 hours. Above the Lieri Valley, Italy, where the mountains hold the cold like a grudge, Lieutenant Marco Bellini keeps his cheek pressed to wet limestone, breath thin and slow, as if the air itself belongs to someone else. The ridgeline is only a dark suggestion against a bruised sky. Below, the valley is a smudge of smoke and ruined farm walls. Somewhere beyond that, beyond the tangle of olive trees and shattered terraces, German machine guns are awake. You don't see them, you feel them. A distant clatter, metal on metal, travels up through the stone and into your teeth. Bellini's men lie in a staggered file behind him, boots dug into dirt that smells of crushed time and old rain. No one speaks. In the pre-dawn, even a whisper feels like a flare. Bellini lifts his binoculars a fraction. The lenses fog at the edges. He wipes them on his sleeve without taking his eyes off the slope ahead. The trail they're supposed to use is there, barely. A goat path, scratched into the mountainside, curling toward a saddle that will funnel them into the next ridge. A perfect place for an ambush. And Bellini knows it. Not because he's psychic, not because he's a genius, because in his pack, under canvas and careful hands, something shifts. Soft claws on wood, a feathered body turning, a tiny pulse of life that doesn't belong in a killing place. Corporal Eddie Morrow inches forward, face blackened with soot, eyes wide. He taps Bellini's boot with 2 fingers, a question without sound. Bellini doesn't look back. He only raises 2 fingers, then flattens his palm. Hold. Wait. Up the line, Sergeant Gianni Rossi stares into the darkness like he can burn a hole through it. Rossi has been in the mountains since before Bellini had a commission. He doesn't trust silence. Silence is what happens when a trap is patient. Bellini hears it again, that faint, irregular clink, like a canteen cup hitting a belt buckle, like a rifle sling hook ticking a buckle. Small noises, human noises. He takes in a slow breath. The air tastes like damp ash. Then he makes a decision that would get him laughed out of a staff office and chewed apart by a major who's never crawled up a ridge with a death wish waiting at the crest. He reaches into his pack. His fingers find smooth feathers, warmth, a quick, nervous shiver. The bird's heart is going too fast, so fast it feels unreal, like it's trying to outrun history. Morrow's eyes flick down. He sees the wooden travel crate, the cloth cover, the way Bellini's hands move like a man handling explosives. Morrow's expression shifts from confusion to something else. Disbelief. Because what the hell is a pigeon doing here? Bellini slides the crate open a few centimeters. A narrow wedge of sky spills in. The bird inside leans toward it instantly, instinct pulling like gravity. Rossi finally glances back, eyebrows knitting. Bellini meets his gaze for one beat, one soldier to another, then looks forward again. He doesn't explain. There's no time to explain. Explaining is for people who still think the world is rational. Bellini lifts the pigeon out, cradling it close to his chest so it doesn't flare its wings. The bird's feet curl against his glove. Its eyes are glossy and black, reflecting the last few stars. You can almost feel the tension in that tiny body, how it wants to bolt, how it wants the sky, how it wants anything but this cold stone and the smell of men who've been afraid for too long. Bellini raises his hand. Not high, never high, just enough. He releases. The pigeon bursts upward in a snap of wings, so loud it feels like a gunshot in the silence. For half a second, Bellini's stomach drops, because if the enemy hears that flutter, if a German on the ridge hears it and looks. But the bird doesn't climb straight. It darts along the contour like a thrown stone, hugging the slope, then angles up, and then it changes. The pigeon stops flying like a bird. It starts flying like it has a plan. It cuts toward the saddle. Rossi's mouth tightens. Moro is staring like he's watching a magic trick. Bellini's eyes track the bird through the dim, willing it not to silhouette itself against the sky. And then, as the pigeon reaches the saddle, something moves. A shadow shifts where a shadow shouldn't shift. A line of darkness rises, too straight, too deliberate. A helmet rim catching the faintest gray. A rifle barrel tilting. A man, German, stands up just enough to see. Just enough. He's there for a heartbeat, and then he crouches again, fast, like he's been burned. Bellini's blood goes cold. There it is, the ambush point. A machine gun nest tucked behind stacked rock. 2, maybe 3 men dug in where the path narrows. And farther back, deeper, something heavier. A mortar? A second gun? He can't see it cleanly yet, but he feels the geometry of it. The kill zone, the crossfire, the way bodies would fall on that trail with nowhere to roll. Rossi's eyes harden as he registers what Bellini saw. He leans in, lips near Bellini's ear, barely moving air. Tedeschi. Germans. Bellini nods once. He raises his hand and signals back down the line. 2 fingers forward, then a slicing motion across his throat. Stop. Cut it. No advance. He motions left, off the trail, into worse terrain, into sharp rock and loose scree and thorny brush that will shred skin and snag equipment and slow them down. Better slow than dead. Moro swallows. He shifts his weight, preparing to crawl. Rossi's men tighten straps, check that no metal clinks. No one complains. In the dark, you don't need a speech about courage. You just need a reason that feels real. And the reason is a pigeon disappearing into the dawn. They move, crawling first, then hunched, then low-stepping through brush that scrapes their hands raw. Bellini feels every snag like a warning. Loose stones tumble, and each tiny slide makes his heart seize, until he realizes the wind is loud enough to swallow it. Above them, the saddle remains a black mouth waiting to bite. Bellini risks another look. The enemy position is still. Too still. That's the danger. Germans in the mountains learn to freeze like rock. Minutes stretch. Then, somewhere ahead, closer than Bellini likes, he hears a muffled cough. Not from his men, from up near the saddle. Rossi hears it too. You can tell by the way his jaw locks, the way he stops blinking. Bellini holds up his fist. Halt. Everyone becomes stone. For a moment, the entire war feels suspended on a single sound. A man breathing in the wrong place. Bellini eases his binoculars up again. Careful. Careful. He scans the rocks just below the saddle, looking for the shape of a boot, the edge of a field gray sleeve, the telltale straight line of a weapon. Nothing. Then he sees it. A thin wire, almost invisible, drawn across a gap between 2 rocks, right where the detour they're taking would force a man to step. A tripwire. Not on the main trail, on the flank. That means the Germans didn't just plan one kill zone. They planned for clever men who try to go around. Bellini's mouth goes dry. He turns his head slightly toward Rossi. Rossi doesn't need an explanation. He sees Bellini's eyes shift. He follows the gaze. He spots the wire. And for the first time all morning, Rossi looks impressed in a way that's almost resentment. Because this isn't luck anymore. This is someone thinking like the enemy. Bellini reaches back into his pack, fingers brushing the edge of the wooden crate again, empty now, lighter. The bird is gone into the gray sky, back toward wherever it considers home. Bellini stares at that wire and feels something that isn't fear. It's realization. If the Germans are laying tripwires on the flank, they're anticipating scouts. They're anticipating patrols. They're anticipating exactly what Bellini is trying to do. Which means today's not just an ambush, it's a net. And Bellini and his men are already inside it. He lifts his hand and begins to signal a new route, one that will take them higher, over the uglier rocks, where no sane soldier would choose to crawl. Then, from somewhere above and behind the saddle, a sharp metallic click cuts through the wind. A rifle bolt. Someone just chambered a round. Bellini freezes mid-signal, fingers suspended in the air. Because the click didn't come from where the ambush is, it came from behind them. Bellini's hand stays raised, fingers half-formed in a signal nobody finishes reading. Even the wind seems to pause. That click, metal on metal, didn't echo from the saddle. It came from the rocks behind them, downslope, where their own rear security should be watching. The sound is too precise to be a loose buckle, too deliberate to be a stone slide. A man just fed a round into the chamber. Rossi's eyes shift without moving his head. He's good at that, moving only what's necessary. He catches Bellini's gaze for a fraction, and in that fraction, Bellini sees the same conclusion landing in Rossi's mind like a hammer. They've been stalked. Not followed at a distance, not trailed by an overeager patrol. Stalked the way mountain hunters stalk. Silent, patient, close enough to smell your fear. Bellini lowers his fist slowly and flattens his palm. Freeze. Corporal Morrow's breathing goes shallow. His fingers tighten around his rifle until the knuckles lighten under grime. The men lie in a crooked line among thorn and wet stone, each trying to become the ground. Bellini shifts his weight a few centimeters, just enough to bring his ear closer to the earth. It's a trick he learned from Alpine troops in training. Listen through the mountain. The rock carries vibration better than air. He catches it. A faint, irregular crunch. Boot tread on grit. One man? Two? Hard to tell. The mountain turns everything into suggestion. Bellini's eyes flick to the tripwire again. It's positioned with cruel intelligence, exactly where a careful detour funnels you. He imagines the mechanism. A tensioned wire, a grenade, a flare, maybe both. If it's a flare, the Germans get a clean silhouette. If it's a grenade, the rocks become knives. He can almost hear a German NCO whispering to his men. Let them come off the trail. Let them think they're clever. Rossi inches closer, moving like an insect along stone. His lips barely part. Rear? He mouths. Bellini answers with the smallest nod. Rossi looks down the line. He picks two men with his eyes. Private Salvatore Toto Greco, who grew up climbing terraces outside Naples, and Corporal James H. Jamie Knox, an American attached as a liaison runner, tough as wire and quiet as a ghost. Rossi makes a subtle cutting motion. Peel back, slow, silent. Greco and Knox begin to drift rearward, inch by inch, never lifting their torsos, rifles kept low to avoid catching the dawn. Bellini watches them go, then forces his gaze forward again. Because the mountain has two jaws, and today, both are closing. The sky lightens from black to charcoal. The ridgeline sharpens. Shapes begin to separate from shadow. Visibility is a gift and a curse. You see more, and so do they. Bellini's throat tightens as a new sound threads through the wind. Soft, rapid wingbeats. For a heartbeat, he thinks it's his bird returning. Then he sees it. Another pigeon, wild, skimming low. And something flashes from the rocks near the saddle. A shot cracks, flat and sharp, swallowed almost instantly by the valley. The pigeon jerks midair and tumbles, feathers scattering like torn paper. Rossi's nostrils flare. "They're shooting at birds," he breathes, barely audible. Not a question, a confirmation of a fear he didn't want to name. Bellini doesn't answer, because answering would make it real. Instead, he watches the German position with new eyes. If they're firing at pigeons, they've learned something. Either they've noticed a pattern, birds appearing before patrols change direction, or someone has told them. Or worse, they've captured one. Bellini's mind snaps to a memory he keeps locked away. The first time he brought a crate into a command post and got that look from a captain. Amusement edged with contempt. "What is this, Lieutenant? A circus?" The staff had been drowning in maps, radio requests, artillery tables. A pigeon felt like superstition in a mechanized war. But Bellini didn't arrive at this idea through romance. He arrived through corpses. In the winter, his platoon walked into a ravine where the snow looked clean. Then a mine went off, and the snow turned red and black and steaming. He remembered a farmer's dovecote in a ruined village, pigeons returning home no matter how far they were carried. He remembered how birds cut across terrain without caring about trails and choke points. So he experimented. Not with messages like the old armies, though he did that too, but with movement, with reaction. Release a pigeon, watch the ridge. If a German head snaps up, if a rifle follows, if a shadow shifts, there's your unseen position. It wasn't magic, it was physiology. Men react to movement, and Bellini had started to trust it more than his own optimism. Now, watching the Germans shoot at a random wild pigeon, he realizes the enemy may have begun to fear the same thing. Movement that predicts them. Bellini edges his binoculars left, scanning for the wire's anchor points. 2 rocks, a shallow scrape in dirt. The trigger mechanism hidden behind a slab. He can't disarm it from here without crawling directly into its teeth. He thinks fast. If they backtrack, they risk the stalkers behind them. If they push forward, they risk the saddle's guns. If they hold, daylight will expose them, and artillery will start searching the ridges like fingers. He needs a third option. He turns slightly and signals to Moro. 2 taps on his own chest, then points to Moro, then makes a small circling motion. Moro's eyes narrow. He understands. Take 2 men, swing wider right, find a route up and around the wire's kill point, then signal. Moro hesitates only long enough to check Bellini's face. Bellini gives him the look that says, "If you don't move, we all die here." Moro picks Private Luca Santini, lean and calm, and Frankie Doyle, a radio man with the kind of steady hands you want near a detonator. They start to slide away, disappearing into brush. Bellini forces himself to stay still. Waiting is agony. Waiting in a place where you know you're being watched is worse. Behind them, a pebble shifts. Tiny, almost nothing. But in the mountains, nothing is always something. Then Greco's voice hisses, so low Bellini barely catches it. Movement. Bellini doesn't turn. He only listens. Greco continues, a whisper tucked into the wind. 2, maybe 3, coming up the same line we came. Knox adds something in English, breath tight. Close. Rossi's jaw flexes. He slides his thumb across the safety of his rifle, not clicking it, just feeling the metal. The men around him begin to prepare with microscopic movements. A strap loosened to prevent it snapping. A bayonet checked with a thumb. A grenade shifted so it won't rattle. Bellini's brain runs through a grim arithmetic. If the Germans behind them are close, they may be a small patrol trying to herd them into the saddle ambush. Or they may be the second jaw of the net, an overwatch element meant to shoot fleeing men from the back. Either way, they're not accidental. Bellini's gaze flicks up to the ridge again. He sees one helmet rise just a fraction, then vanish. The enemy is awake and attentive. They're waiting for the first mistake. Bellini tastes blood. He's bitten the inside of his cheek without noticing. He tries to picture the next minute like a map. If the rear element opens fire, Bellini's platoon will instinctively push forward toward the saddle. If the saddle guns open, the platoon will instinctively roll back toward the rear element. A net. A clean one. You can almost feel the trap closing around your ribs. Bellini raises 2 fingers toward Rossi and then makes a quick motion. Spread. Rossi nods, understanding. Shift the line. Create angles. Deny the enemy a single burst that hits multiple men. It's a small thing, but small things keep you alive. The men begin to drift, 1 meter here, 2 meters there, still low, still silent. The line becomes a fan, and then from behind, a voice calls out in German, sharp and confident. Halt! Hände hoch! Stop. Hands up. The accent is clipped, practiced, the voice of a man who believes he has control. Bellini doesn't move. Rossi doesn't move. Nobody raises their hands. For 3 seconds, the mountain holds its breath. Then the German voice barks again, closer now, impatient. Halt! Bellini's mind flashes through options. How many seconds until they shoot? How many seconds until the saddle hears and joins in? How many seconds until the whole ridge erupts? He feels, suddenly, the absurd weight of the empty crate in his pack. The bird is gone, and yet the idea remains. Movement that draws a reaction. A plan forms, dangerous but better than paralysis. Bellini slowly reaches for his canteen cup, metal wrapped in cloth to mute it. He slides it out, careful. His fingers find a small stone. He looks at Rossi just once, and in his eyes, Rossi reads the intention. Bellini tosses the stone, not far, just enough, into a patch of brush to their left, away from the tripwire and away from their actual line. The stone lands with a soft crackle. Immediately, a rifle snaps toward the sound from behind. Bellini sees the movement reflected in Greco's eyes, and from the saddle, a helmet rises again, drawn by the same instinct. Men react to movement. In that instant, just that instant, Bellini uses the distraction to whisper, almost without breath, Rossi, now. Rossi pivots, rifle up, and fires one controlled burst into the rearward rocks where Greco last saw the stalkers. The sound is deafening in the tight terrain. Stone chips explode. A German shouts, pain or surprise, it doesn't matter. Knox fires too, a single shot, precise. The rear jaw flinches, and the forward jaw, at the saddle, wakes fully. A machine gun opens up, stitching the brush line where Bellini would have been if he'd stayed on the trail. Dirt erupts, leaves shred. The rounds crack overhead like angry insects. Bellini's men press into the ground as the mountain tears itself apart. So the Germans commit. Good. Commitment reveals patterns. Bellini screams, not words, just a harsh sound, to cut through the chaos, and signals hard to the right, toward where Moro went. Move, move, move. But Moro isn't back yet. Bellini's eyes dart, searching for the 3 figures he sent. The brush and rock swallow them. The machine gun rakes again, closer. Somewhere to Bellini's left, a man grunts, then goes still. Rossi snaps his head, sees blood darkening fabric. He reaches, grabs the wounded man's webbing, drags him behind a rock with brute strength. Bellini's chest tightens with anger. Not the clean anger of ideology, the ugly anger of being hunted. He shouts for smoke. Doyle would have it if Doyle is still moving. Someone lobs a smoke grenade, and white blooms against gray rock, immediately shredded by wind, but enough to blur sight lines. Bellini crawls forward 2 meters, then 3, using the smoke's brief veil. He reaches the edge of the tripwire's danger zone and stops, staring at it like it's a living thing. If he cuts it, it may trigger. If he steps over, his boot might snag. If he goes under, his pack might catch. Behind him, the rear element shifts again, boots grinding. They're pushing. Bellini's options collapse into one narrow thread. He needs Moro's route, and he needs it now. Then, through the thinning smoke, he sees movement on the right. Moro appears, face scraped, eyes blazing, one hand raised in a tight fist. He jerks his head upward. There's a way. A narrow chimney of rock, steep and brutal, but passable. It bypasses the wire and climbs above the saddle's line of fire. Bellini's relief is instant and dangerous. It makes him want to rush. He forces it down. He signals the platoon. Follow Moro, one at a time, spacing, no bunching. Rossi covers. Knox and Greco keep the rear jaw busy. The first man starts up the chimney, fingers finding holds, boots scraping. The second follows. The wounded man, still conscious, whimpers as Rossi and Santini haul him, inch by inch, refusing to leave him. The machine gun shifts, searching. The rear Germans fire sporadically, uncertain now, not sure where the prey is going. Bellini climbs last, feeling the rock bite his palms, feeling gravity tug at his pack. He looks down once and sees the tripwire below. So close, so easy to trigger from a dangling strap. He freezes mid-climb, breath locked. Because above him, from the top of the chimney, comes a new sound. Not a gun. A low, satisfied chuckle, followed by a German voice close enough to spit on him. Guten Morgen. Good morning. Bellini clings to the rock like a nail hammered into a wall. Above him, the voice is calm, almost amused, close enough that Bellini can hear moisture on breath, the faint rasp of a smoker's throat. Guten Morgen. Good morning. For half a second, Bellini's brain refuses it. The chimney was supposed to be empty. Moro swore with his whole body that it was a way through, not a doorway into a German's grin. Below, someone's boot slips on slick stone. A quick scrape, then stillness. The men behind him freeze in the same instant Bellini does. A human chain, suspended over a tripwire and under a machine gun line, held up by rock and panic. Bellini forces air into his lungs without making a sound. He tilts his head just enough to see the upper lip of the chimney. A silhouette blocks the pale dawn. Broad shoulders, a helmet brim. The faint outline of a rifle held not in a firing stance, but in a ready, casual way, like the man has time. Rossi is somewhere below, covering. Moro is above, near that lip. Bellini's mind reaches for him like a hand. Bellini whispers, barely moving his jaw. Moro. No answer. Only the German again, softer this time, as if speaking to a child hiding under a bed. Kommt schon. Raus. Come on. Out. Bellini feels his fingers start to cramp from gripping rock. His glove squeaks faintly against damp limestone. That tiny sound seems enormous. And then the German does something that makes Bellini's stomach drop. He tosses something, not down the chimney, just into it. It clinks once, twice, then settles with a metallic finality on a ledge a meter above Bellini's face. A grenade. The world narrows to that object. Dark green body. The shape unmistakable even in dim light. Bellini can almost see the stamping on the casing, though he can't. The pin is still in. The German isn't trying to blow them yet. He's demonstrating that he can. Bellini's mind races through the geometry. If the grenade goes off in here, the chimney becomes a barrel. Blast and fragments will bounce off rock, multiply, shred. Men below will have nowhere to go without falling into the tripwire's death. Bellini hears his own pulse in his ears. He thinks of all the training lectures about staying calm, delivered in warm classrooms by men who never had a grenade set down in front of their eyes like a cup of coffee. Above, the German laughs once, short, controlled. A man enjoying leverage. Bellini shifts one hand, slowly. His fingers slide toward his own pocket, toward the small wire cutters he uses for field problems. The kind you keep because war is full of thin lines that kill you. But the cutters won't help here. If that pin comes out, there is no cleverness, only time. Bellini looks down. He catches Rossi's eyes through the narrow gap, 2 bodies below. Rossi is staring up, lips pulled back in a silent snarl. Rossi makes a motion. Throw a grenade up. Bellini shakes his head once. Not here. Not in a chimney. A grenade in this tube will kill them all, even if it kills the German too. Bellini thinks of the pigeons again, not because they're magical, but because they represent a kind of war the Germans can't completely control, a thing that slips between their plans. He forces his mind into the present. The German at the top expects surrender, or a rush, or fear. He expects predictable human behavior. So Bellini gives him something else. Bellini raises his voice just enough to carry, Italian thickened with breath. Non sparare. Parliamo. Don't shoot. Let's talk. It's absurd. It's dangerous. It's also the only thing that might buy seconds. The German answers immediately, as if he's been waiting for it. Ihr seid umsingelt. You are surrounded. Bellini keeps his tone flat, as if he's negotiating a checkpoint, not dangling over a trap. No, you are alone up there. A pause. A slight shift in silhouette. The German leans, trying to see down the chimney better without exposing himself too much. Bellini's eyes lock onto the edge of the helmet. He can almost picture the man. Early 30s, maybe. Mountain-trained, confident. The kind of soldier who believes terrain is an ally. The German speaks again, and now Bellini hears it. Italian words tucked inside the German, the way a man sounds when he's been stationed in a place long enough to steal its language. Nicht allein. Meine Freunde sind überall. Not alone. My friends are everywhere. Bellini swallows. He hears a new sound outside the chimney, scraping above and to the right. A boot on rock. So the German does have someone else nearby. Or he wants Bellini to believe he does. Bellini chooses to believe the scraping. Belief keeps you alive when disbelief freezes you. He calls again, keeping it steady. Name. The silhouette shifts, as if the question irritates him. Then, surprisingly, the German answers. Feldwebel Klaus Richter, he says. Field sergeant. The rank lands like a stone. Not an officer, not a nobody. A man who's done this for years. Bellini nods, as if he can see Richter's face. Lieutenant Marco Bellini. Richter chuckles. Lieutenant, he repeats, tasting the word. You are brave, Lieutenant, or stupid. Bellini almost smiles but stops himself. Today, both. Behind Bellini, Knox murmurs something. English, clipped, harsh. Bellini doesn't catch the words, only the feeling. We're going to die if you keep talking. Bellini understands. Talking is a thin rope, but ropes are what you climb when the ground is gone. He continues. You have a machine gun on the saddle. You have men behind us. Why are you here? Richter's reply is immediate, proud. Because I like to see the eyes. Bellini's stomach tightens. He's not talking to a frightened conscript. He's talking to a hunter. A gust of wind pushes through the chimney and carries with it the smell of cordite from the saddle, sharp, bitter. Distant firing continues, irregular now, as if the Germans are probing for movement rather than pouring ammunition. The net is still tightening, but it's momentarily unsure. Bellini uses that uncertainty. He slowly shifts his weight, 1 inch at a time, until his left hand can reach the grenade on the ledge above him. His fingers hover just short of touching it. If he grabs it, Richter might yank the pin and drop it. If he leaves it, Richter might decide to pull the pin anyway. Bellini speaks again, softer. Richter, listen. You can kill us here, but you will die too. Richter laughs again, but it's thinner now. Maybe. Bellini presses. Why die here? For what? For a chimney? For the first time, Richter doesn't answer right away. Bellini imagines the German's eyes narrowing, calculating. He imagines him considering whether Bellini is stalling for an ambush above. And Bellini is stalling, just not for the reason Richter thinks. Because Bellini isn't waiting for a man with a rifle. He's waiting for a bird. Not the bird from earlier, that one is gone, but another. A second crate, farther back with the support element. A runner sent to retrieve it. Bellini had ordered it before dawn, before the first release, a contingency that felt foolish even as he gave it. If we're pinned, bring the second crate up to the rock line, fast. Now, if that crate is moving, if the runner is alive, Bellini might have one more chance to make the Germans react in the wrong direction. But that chance is not here, not in this chimney. He needs seconds. He needs Richter to keep talking. Bellini turns his head slightly and calls down, as if to his own men, but loud enough for Richter. Rossi, don't shoot. Rossi's face twists in rage, but he doesn't fire upward. He trusts Bellini, barely. Bellini looks up again. Richter, you shoot pigeons? The question hangs in the cold air. For a heartbeat, Richter is silent. Then his voice drops, and the amusement drains out of it. Ah, a single syllable. Recognition. Bellini feels it like a knife. The Germans know. Richter speaks again, and now there's something like contempt in it. The little birds. The little trick. Bellini keeps his voice steady, even as his mind spins. Not a trick. A tool. Richter snorts. A tool makes noise, he says. Your birds make men look up. He's right. And because he's right, Bellini realizes something else. This isn't the first time Richter's unit has been embarrassed by a patrol avoiding their ambushes. This is not new to him. He's been adapting. Richter's next words confirm it, and they land with the weight of inevitability. 15, Richter says, the Italian word almost perfect. 15 times you changed your path. 15 times you did not die where you should have died. Bellini's throat tightens. That number, 15, had become a private tally in Bellini's own head, a superstition he refused to speak aloud. 15 avoided ambushes since winter. 15 times the mountain didn't drink his platoon. Now the enemy is saying it back to him. Rossi hears it too. Bellini sees the flare of it in Rossi's eyes, shock, anger, and a strange fear. Because if the Germans have been counting, they've been watching longer than Bellini thought. Bellini forces himself to answer, quiet but sharp. If you know, why didn't you stop us sooner? Richter's laughter returns, but now it's colder. We tried, he says. We set wire on the flanks. We put men behind. We waited for you to climb like rats. Bellini's fingers twitch near the grenade. He feels sweat under his gloves despite the cold. Richter continues, and now his tone is almost conversational, as if they're two men discussing weather. You release a bird. My men shoot at birds. You look for my guns. So we do something else. Bellini holds his breath. Richter says it plainly. We catch your bird. Bellini goes still. In his mind, he sees it. One of his pigeons captured, taken alive, its leg band red, its route guessed. Not the mystical home like a place on a map, but the practical reality. The Germans learn where Bellini's birds come from, where they return, which ruins hide the dovecote. They can plant men there. They can poison it. They can wait until Bellini depends on it. Bellini's stomach turns. His system, the thing that kept his men alive, has a vulnerability he tried not to name. Below, Knox shifts. He whispers, tight with urgency. Lieutenant, move. Bellini doesn't answer. He's staring at the top lip of the chimney, imagining Richter's hand on the grenade pin. Richter's voice softens, almost kindly. Come out, he says. I will take you. You will live. Maybe. Bellini thinks of the wounded man below, of Rossi's stubborn loyalty, of Moro's scraped face, of the dead pigeon spinning out of the sky, of 15 avoided ambushes and the 16th closing its teeth. He makes a choice. He reaches up, fast, and grabs the grenade. Richter's silhouette jerks forward. 9! Bellini yanks the grenade down, not pulling the pin, just taking it away from the ledge. His arm burns with the sudden movement. He hears Richter's boots scrape rock as the German leans to fire into the chimney. Bellini shouts, raw, Rossi! Rossi doesn't hesitate now. He fires upward, 2 shots, aimed not to kill Richter, but to force him back from the lip. The shots crack. Stone chips explode near the top. Richter swears, loud, furious, and retreats half a step. In that half step, Bellini sees the opening. He swings his arm and hurls the grenade out of the chimney mouth, not up into the tube, but out to the side, aiming for the open slope above where Richter's men might be. The grenade arcs into pale dawn. Bellini doesn't know if the pin is still in. He didn't have time to check, and in that moment, he doesn't care. It's a threat thrown into the enemy's mind as much as the air. Richter shouts something, orders, panic, a warning, and then, from somewhere above, comes a new sound that slices through everything. A whistle. Not the wind. A human whistle, sharp and coated. Bellini's blood turns to ice because he recognizes it. It's not Italian. It's the kind of signal a German patrol uses to coordinate a close-in sweep. And it's answered, immediately, by another whistle farther left. They're not alone. Richter wasn't bluffing. And now, they're angry. The whistles bounce off rock and return as echoes, as if the mountain is mocking them. One sharp call, another reply. Then a third, closer, higher, above the chimney lip. Bellini grips the limestone until his fingers ache. The grenade he stole from the ledge is still in his hand, heavy and stupidly ordinary. He can't even remember if he saw the pin clearly. He only remembers Richter's silhouette snapping forward like a striking snake. Rossi fires again, short, controlled, just to keep Richter's head down. Stone spits. Richter curses in German, the words sharp enough to cut. Below, Knox's voice rises, urgent, but still trying not to shout. "They're coming over the top!" Bellini doesn't need the warning. He can hear boots now, multiple, scraping and thudding on the ridge above. Men moving in a loose arc to seal the chimney like a bottle. The net is no longer an idea. It's boots. Bellini forces himself to look down, to his men. Moro is wedged higher up the chimney, eyes up, rifle angled, ready to fire at the lip the instant a helmet appears. Greco and Knox hold the lower angle, watching for the rear jaw pushing up. Doyle clutches his radio like it's a rosary, face smeared, lips moving soundlessly. The wounded man, Private Enzo Marinelli, is breathing fast, too fast, trying to stay quiet and failing. Blood darkens his trouser leg. Rossi has him pinned behind a rock shelf with his own body as cover, like a father shielding a son. Bellini's mind flicks through a brutal checklist. If they stay in the chimney, Germans above can drop grenades straight down like coins into a well. If they retreat, the tripwire is still there, and the saddle's machine gun will cut them apart the moment they re-enter open ground. If they go up, they go into Richter's teeth and whatever friends he whistled in. There's no clean exit. So Bellini does what commanders do when maps stop helping. He narrows the world to a single decision that creates motion. Up, he breathes, close enough that only Moro and Rossi catch it. We take the lip. We take it now. Rossi's eyes flash. Moro's jaw tightens. Neither argues, because arguing is for men with time. Bellini reaches into his pack with one hand, the other still pressed to rock. He feels for a smoke grenade, his last one. His fingers close around the cylinder. He leans toward Doyle. When I throw, count to 3, then smoke to the saddle side. Doyle nods, swallowing fear. His hands are steady in a way that makes Bellini hate him a little, hate the ease of it, the calm in a place that should break you. Bellini raises the smoke grenade, arm trembling from strain. He doesn't aim at the Germans. He aims at their eyes. He throws. The canister clatters near the chimney lip and rolls out of sight. A heartbeat later, it spits white, then thick gray, then a dirty, spreading cloud that crawls along rock and begins to spill over the chimney mouth like fog pouring from a cave. Uno, due, tre, Doyle whispers. Then Doyle's own smoke follows, lobbed to the right, toward the saddle's firing lane. It bursts and immediately fights the wind, a struggling curtain that still does one crucial thing. It breaks the clean line of sight. Bellini doesn't wait for it to fully bloom. Waiting gets you killed. Move, he hisses, and climbs. Moro goes first, as he should, closest to the lip, fastest. He climbs like a man who has climbed worse things for less reason. His fingers find holds without searching. His boots bite. He raises his rifle above his head before his eyes clear the ridge. Bellini follows, hauling himself upward, lungs burning. The chimney narrows, pinning his shoulders. His pack snags. He yanks it free. He hears Knox below, muttering a curse in English, like a prayer. At the top, Moro's head and shoulders vanish into the smoke. Then gunfire erupts, sharp, close. Not the distant chatter from the saddle. This is intimate. The sound of men firing into shapes they can barely see. Morrow shouts, a half-word cut off. Bellini's chest tightens as he drives upward faster, arms screaming. He crests the lip. For a fraction of a second, the world is a gray blur. Smoke claws at his eyes. Wind tears at it, thinning it in streaks. Bellini blinks and shapes resolve. Rocks, a low stone breastwork, and, 2 meters away, a German soldier turning, startled, rifle rising. Bellini doesn't think. He fires once. The German jerks back, drops out of sight behind rock. Bellini moves left instinctively, away from where he was visible. He feels the heat of a bullet pass close enough to hear it, a thin, tearing sound. To his right, Morrow is on one knee behind a boulder, breathing hard, eyes wild. He points with 2 fingers, Richter's direction. Bellini sees him for an instant. Feldwebel Klaus Richter, closer than Bellini expected, crouched behind a slab, helmet low, rifle angled. Richter's eyes lock on Bellini through the thinning smoke. It's not hatred in that stare. It's recognition. "You're the one with the birds." Richter shouts something to his men. Bellini catches only fragments. "Links! Runter! Granaten!" Left, down, grenades. A German hand arcs upward, and something dark spins through the smoke. Bellini's body reacts before his brain names it. He grabs Morrow's webbing and yanks him down behind the boulder. The grenade lands and bounces once, twice, then detonates with a concussive slap that punches Bellini's chest and fills his mouth with dust. Stone fragments whip past like thrown razors. Bellini hears a man scream, German, close. Another shout, higher-pitched, panicked. When the dust clears a fraction, Bellini sees a German soldier clutching his face, blood between his fingers, staggering backward. Another lies still, half covered in shattered rock. Bellini doesn't feel triumph, only grim momentum. "Rossi!" he shouts down into the chimney, voice raw. "Up! Now!" He hears Rossi below, barking to the men. Boot scrapes, a grunt. The wounded Marinelli sobs once, then clamps his teeth. The smoke above the saddle thickens and drifts. And in that drifting, Bellini catches the machine gun's firing pattern changing. Shorter bursts, searching, uncertain. The gunners can't see the trail clearly now. They're firing at memory. It buys seconds. Bellini crawls forward on the ridgetop, keeping low. The terrain here is jagged, broken into pockets that can hide a man or swallow him. He spots a shallow depression where Germans have scraped out a position. Fresh dirt, cigarette butt, the faint shine of an ammunition belt. They were ready for this ridge. Of course they were. Bellini turns his head and sees Knox crest the lip, eyes wide, rifle up. Greco follows. Then Rossi, dragging Marinelli with Santini's help. Marinelli's face is gray with pain, but his eyes are alive. Bellini's men are now on the ridgetop, but so are Richter's. The smoke is thinning. The day is coming. Richter barks again, and Bellini sees 2 Germans shifting to flank left, using rock folds the way Italians use vineyard walls. Bellini fires at the rock edge to pin them, not caring if he hits. He just needs them to hesitate. A burst answers him, German fire snapping at his position. Chips of stone sting his cheek. He tastes grit. "Knox!" Bellini shouts. "Right! Watch right!" Knox nods, slides into a crevice, and aims down a narrow channel where a German could appear like a ghost. Rossi, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, leans close to Bellini. "We can't hold this," he says, breath harsh. "They'll bring more." Bellini knows it. The whistles weren't for 2 men. They were for the ridge network, small groups that can converge fast, like wolves. He scans for an exit. To their left, the ridge drops into a steep scree slope that could break legs. To their right, a narrow goat path snakes downward behind a rock fin, hidden from the saddle's gun if they move fast. Bellini points. There. Rossi follows the line with his eyes, then nods once. We run? We slide, Bellini says, and we don't stop. He signals to Moro, take point, guide the wounded. Moro nods, grim. But as Bellini starts to move, a sharp crack splits the air, and a bullet smacks stone inches from his hand. Too precise, too close. Not machine gun, not panicked rifle fire. A marksman. Bellini flattens instantly, heart hammering. He looks up, searching for the angle. A sniper is watching this ridge from somewhere with patience and glass. Richter's voice carries through the rocks, taunting, almost pleased. Lieutenant Bellini! Bellini keeps his head down. Richter continues, louder now, addressing not just Bellini, but the mountain itself. Your birds cannot help you now. And then, absurdly, impossibly, Bellini hears it. Wingbeats. Not one bird, several. A fluttering rush, low and fast, cutting across the ridgeline from behind. He risks a glance. 3 pigeons skim the rocks, hugging the ground the way his trained birds do when they've learned to fear hawks and gunfire. One of them carries something tiny on its leg. Bellini's breath catches. That's not wild. That's his. A runner did bring the second crate up. Someone back there followed orders through hell and got the birds close enough to release. The pigeons dart forward, then climb, right across the line where the sniper's shot came from. And somewhere above, on a distant spur, a helmet shifts, just a fraction, tracking the movement. Bellini's eyes lock onto that shift. There, a dark notch in rock, a glint that isn't stone, a human edge. The pigeons didn't save him by magic. They saved him by making a man react. Bellini leans into Rossi, voice tight with urgency. Sniper, spur, 10 o'clock. See it? Rossi squints, then his face hardens. I see. Bellini doesn't tell him to shoot yet. Not until he's sure. Not until the pigeons draw the second reaction. The birds wheel once, confused by smoke and noise. Then one of them, faithful to training, angles toward the valley line, toward home. The notch in the rock tracks it again. Rossi fires. One shot. Clean. The recoil bumps his shoulder. Silence for a beat, then a distant thud, like a sack dropped. The sniper is gone, or at least suppressed. Bellini exhales a breath he didn't know he was holding. He turns toward the narrow path and signals hard. Move now. The platoon begins to slip toward the goat path, dragging Marinelli, stepping over broken stone, staying low. Richter's men fire again, but less coordinated now, confused by smoke, by shifting targets, by the sudden loss of their marksman. Richter shouts, furious, and Bellini hears him scramble after them. The path curves behind the rock fin, and for a moment the saddle's machine gun can't see them. The goat path pitches downward in tight, ugly turns, the kind of route that feels less like walking and more like controlled falling. Loose scree slides under boots, stones skittering into the void. Every clatter sounds like a signal flare. Bellini keeps one hand on the rock fin, fingertips scraping limestone, anchoring himself in a world that wants to throw him off. He stays close to Marinelli as Rossi and Santini drag the wounded man by his webbing, their faces clenched with effort. Above, rifle fire fades, then returns in short bursts, German shots probing through smoke and frustration. Richter's voice carries once more, distant now, sharp with anger, but the words get torn apart by wind. Bellini doesn't look back again. Looking back is how men fall. They drop into a fold in the terrain, where the ridge blocks line of sight from the saddle. For the first time in what feels like hours, the machine gun's insect chatter is muted by stone. The air here smells different: damp earth, crushed fern, the faint rot of old leaves in crevices. "Hold," Bellini whispers. The platoon compresses into cover, behind a fallen slab, under a low shelf, inside a shallow gully. Men breathe hard, trying to pull air quietly. Someone's hands shake as he reloads, the metallic clicks maddeningly loud. Bellini crouches beside Doyle. "Radio?" Doyle's eyes flicker with the panic of a man asked to do math while drowning. He tries anyway. He turns the dial, listens, adjusts, listens again. Static. Distant voices stepping in and out like ghosts. "Nothing clean," Doyle whispers. "Mountains are eating it." Bellini nods, not surprised. In these valleys, radios become wishes. Wire is better, but wire gets cut. Runners get shot. Birds get shot too. Bellini's gaze drifts to the sky slice above the gully. He sees nothing but a pale morning and a thread of cloud. One pigeon got hit, another survived. He doesn't know if it will make it back to the ruined dovecote or if it will die alone in a ravine. Either way, Richter's words keep replaying. 15 times you changed your path. The enemy is counting. Counting means pattern. And if Richter has figured out Bellini's pattern, the next ambush won't be set at the saddle. It will be set for the moment after the release, the moment the platoon changes course. Bellini feels cold sweat under his collar. Rossi leans in, voice low. "He knows about the birds." Bellini watches Marinelli's face. The wounded man's lips are blue. His eyes flick from one man to the next, searching for reassurance that doesn't exist. "We know he knows," Bellini answers. Rossi's nostrils flare. "Then what? We stop?" Bellini almost laughs, but it dies in his throat. Stop doing the only thing that kept them alive? March blind and pray? In the mountains, prayer is just another way of saying you've run out of tactics. Bellini looks at his men, mud-smeared, exhausted, eyes too old. He thinks of the staff officers who would call this a patrol. It isn't a patrol. It's a negotiation with death, conducted in meters. He says, quiet but firm, "We change how we use them." Morrow shifts closer, listening. His cheek is scraped raw from the chimney climb. "How?" Bellini speaks slowly, thinking as he talks. "We stop releasing only when we're close. We release when we don't plan to move. We release to pull their eyes, then we wait. We let them reveal themselves, then we move somewhere else." Morrow frowns. "A false tell." "A lie," Rossi corrects, and there's something like approval in his tone. Finally, Bellini nods once. It feels wrong to talk about lying as a battlefield tool, but war is a factory of lies. Camouflage, feints, decoys, silence, smoke. A pigeon is just another piece on the board. Doyle's radio crackles suddenly, one clear syllable, then static. He adjusts again, and a voice comes through, faint but readable. An American accent, clipped by interference. "Bellini element, report." Doyle looks at Bellini, eyes wide. Bellini leans in and speaks into the handset, slow and deliberate. "This is Bellini. We are pinned and moving off ridgeline. Request artillery interdiction on saddle grid. Repeat, saddle grid, machine gun position. Also request stretcher team at base of spur. Static. Then the voice. Copy. Stand by. Bellini hands the radio back. It's something. Not enough, but something. Rossi tightens his grip on Marinelli's strap. He won't make it long. Bellini kneels beside Marinelli, lowers his voice. Enzo, look at me. Marinelli forces his eyes to Bellini. Tears cling at the corners, not from fear alone. Shock and pain make their own rules. You're going to breathe, Bellini says. Slow, like this. He demonstrates, exaggerated, steady. We get you down, you hear? Marinelli nods weakly, trying to match the rhythm. His hands shake. Bellini stands, scanning the gully's edges. They can't rest long. Richter will push men down the path, and he will do it smart. One element to fix, another to flank. And Bellini realizes something else. Richter isn't just learning pigeons. He's learning Bellini. That stare on the ridge, memorizing, wasn't about tactics. It was about the man behind the tactic. Bellini signals to move again, deeper into the fold, toward a line of terraced stone walls that mark an abandoned hillside farm. The terraces create steps in the slope, offering cover and lanes of movement. It's the kind of place where a dozen men can disappear if they're careful. They slip forward in staggered pairs, rifles up, feet testing every stone before trusting it. Bellini keeps counting, head count, spacing, angles. He listens for the German pursuit and hears it soon enough. Faint voices, boot scrape, a stone kicked loose. They're coming. At the terraces, they drop behind a low wall of stacked rock. Bellini peeks over and sees the gully they just left, now empty, now a funnel. He imagines Germans arriving and finding only footprints and blood drops. He wants them to find nothing else. He turns to Moro. Where's the second crate? Moro's face tightens. Runner didn't come down with us. He released them and vanished. Bellini's stomach sinks. Name? Moro hesitates. Private Antonio Lupi. Bellini closes his eyes for a beat. Lupi is young, too young. A runner who moved like he had springs in his legs. Bellini had seen him grin the day he first held a pigeon, as if the bird was a secret friend. Now Lupi is up on the ridge somewhere, alone or dead or captured. Captured. Bellini's mind latches onto it with a sick certainty, because if Richter can catch a pigeon, he can catch a man. And if Richter catches Lupi, Richter gets more than a prisoner. He gets the dovecote location. He gets the feed routine. He gets the bands. He gets the whole fragile system. Bellini forces his gaze back to the slope. Germans are appearing now, 2 at a time, at the edge of the gully. They move carefully, rifles sweeping, spacing good, veterans, not rushing. They've learned that rushing gets you killed in the mountains. Bellini whispers to Rossi and Knox, assigning arcs. No firing unless you have a sure hit. We let them come. We count them. Knox nods, eyes narrow. Greco mutters a prayer under his breath, then stops as if embarrassed by it. Bellini watches the Germans begin to probe the terraces. They test the walls with their eyes, looking for silhouettes. One German, taller, carries an MP slung low. Another has a rifle with a scope. Spotter? Or a second marksman, now cautious after Rossi's shot. The Germans are adapting. Richter is adapting through them. Bellini's fingers flex. He feels for a pigeon band in his pocket, an old one, spare, a tiny ring of metal stamped with numbers. He doesn't know why he carries it. Habit, superstition, a reminder that small things matter. He slides it between finger and thumb, thinking, Then he hears a sound behind their terrace wall, soft, almost playful. Coos. Bellini turns his head slowly. On the wall, only a meter away, a pigeon has landed. Gray, speckled, head bobbing. Its eyes are bright, indifferent to war in the way animals can be. It looks at Bellini like he's just another rock. Moro stares. Where did that come from? Bellini's blood runs cold. Not because a pigeon is strange, but because of when it arrived. A pigeon returning to the dovecote should be flying away from this ridge, not dropping into their cover. Unless it's lost, unless it's injured, unless it's been handled. Bellini inches closer, slow. The pigeon doesn't spook. That's wrong. Trained birds are brave, but not stupid. They don't normally land beside gunfire and men unless something has changed. Bellini sees it then, a thin thread on its leg. Not a band, thread, tied crude and quick. A message? Or a marker? Bellini reaches out, fingers trembling, and the pigeon allows it. Its feathers feel warm despite the cold air. He lifts the leg gently and sees the thread is looped around the band, an extra addition, not his. He unwraps it with careful fingers. A scrap of paper is tucked under the thread, damp at the edges. Bellini unfolds it, expecting coordinates, maybe a warning from the runner. Instead, in neat, printed German script, it reads, Der Vogel findet immer nach Hause. The bird always finds its way home. Bellini's mouth goes dry. This isn't a message meant to help. It's a message meant to tell him something. Richter has his bird, and Richter knows where home is. The paper trembles in Bellini's fingers as the wind threads through the terrace stones. The bird always finds its way home. It's not intelligence. It's not coordinates. It's a threat with a smile. Bellini looks at the pigeon again, at how calmly it stands there, head bobbing, as if it's delivered bread instead of a warning. Its eye is clear, no injury, no panic. That calm is the worst part, because it means someone carried it close, handled it gently, then let it go as a message in itself. Rossi leans in, reads the German line, and the color drains from his face. They know the dovecote, he whispers. Maro's jaw works, anger and dread grinding together. And Lupi? Bellini doesn't answer, because anything he says becomes real. If he says captured, then the image solidifies. Antonio Lupi on his knees, hands tied, a German field sergeant squatting beside him with patient questions. If he says dead, then Lupi becomes a body somewhere on the ridge, and Bellini can't do anything about it. He forces his attention to the practical. Doyle, he says, get battalion, now. Doyle's hands move fast, tuning the set, the dial scratching under his thumb. The radio spits static, then a voice, faint but there. Bellini takes the handset. This is Bellini. Enemy has identified our pigeon loft location. Repeat, compromised. They may be moving to strike it. Request immediate security detail to grid. He stops, teeth clenched, because saying the grid out loud feels like handing Richter the keys. He gives it anyway. War doesn't care about feelings. Static. Then, copy. Will relay. Can you confirm? Bellini cuts him off. Confirm by the fact I'm holding a German message tied to my bird. He hands the radio back. Behind the terrace wall, the Germans probing the gully edge shift position. A helmet dips. A rifle barrel appears between rocks. Rossi raises his weapon, but Bellini presses a hand down on Rossi's forearm. Not yet, Bellini whispers. They want us to fire. They want us fixed. Rossi's eyes flare with the urge to kill something, anything, to make the pressure stop. but he obeys. Bellini looks down the slope, toward where the ruined villages sit like broken teeth in the valley. That's where the loft is, an old stone outbuilding beside a collapsed farmhouse, chosen because the birds learned it quickly and because it sits in a fold of terrain where artillery rarely bothers to search. Now it's a beacon, a home that pulls death toward it. Bellini makes a choice that feels like tearing off his own skin. He takes the pigeon in both hands. Moro watches, confused. "Lieutenant," Bellini's voice is low, clipped. "If Richter is sending our birds back with his messages, then our loft is no longer ours. It's an address the enemy can use." Rossi's expression hardens. "So we burn it." Bellini nods once, the motion small but final. Not because he wants to, because he has to. He sets the pigeon down, and it hops twice along the stone wall, unbothered. Then it lifts off in a smooth burst, wingbeats soft, and heads downhill, toward home, toward the exact place Bellini is about to destroy. You can almost feel the cruelty of it. The bird doing what it was bred to do, faithfully leading the war to its own door. Bellini watches it vanish and then turns to his men. "We break contact," he whispers. "We move fast to the farmhouse. We deny Richter the loft. We take whatever birds are there. If Germans are already moving on it, we hit first and we hit hard." Rossi swallows the words like stones. "And if Lupi is there?" Bellini holds Rossi's gaze. "Then we bring him back." He doesn't say, "if he's alive," because everyone hears it anyway. Bellini signals the platoon into motion along the terrace line. They slip right, then down, using stone walls like trenches. They move in short bounds, 2 men covering while 2 move, keeping spacing tight enough to communicate, but wide enough to survive a burst. The Germans catch the movement almost immediately. A rifle cracks. Stone chips sting Bellini's cheek again. Another shot snaps past Moro's shoulder. Bellini doesn't return fire. Not yet. He wants the Germans uncertain, guessing whether Bellini is retreating, flanking, or simply breaking. He wants Richter to arrive late. But the enemy doesn't stay confused for long. A German calls out, and footsteps multiply. The probing becomes a push. Rossi finally fires. 1 shot, and a German yelps. The sound is ugly and human. It buys a second, then 2. Bellini uses those seconds to drop the platoon into a narrow drainage cut that runs downhill like a scar. The ditch stinks of wet soil and old manure. Men slide, stumble, catch themselves, keep going. Marinelli groans as his leg bumps rock, and Santini murmurs, hold on," like the words are bandages. They descend hard. Behind them, German voices rise. Boots chase. Someone throws a grenade, and it pops above the ditch, showering dirt and leaves. The blast's pressure hits Bellini's back like a shove. They don't stop. By mid-morning, the valley opens a little. The ruined farmhouse appears ahead, collapsed roof, blackened beams, a stone shed still standing beside it like a stubborn survivor. Bellini's throat tightens. That shed is the loft. He expected it to feel like a tool, a piece of kit. Instead, it feels like a friend about to die. He raises a fist, halt, and signals a silent approach. Moro and Knox slide forward on Bellini's left. Rossi goes right with Greco. Doyle stays close, radio hugged to his chest, eyes darting like a hunted animal. Bellini creeps to the edge of an olive tree and peers through the branches. Movement near the loft. 3 Germans, crouched, scanning. A 4th by the doorway, rifle ready. And Bellini's stomach drops. A man on his knees near the wall, hands behind his back. Small, young, Antonio Lupi. Even from this distance, Bellini recognizes the way Lupi holds his shoulders, trying not to beg, trying not to show fear. A German stands behind him, one hand on Lupi's collar like he's holding a dog. And then Bellini sees Richter. He's unmistakable now in full light. Feldwebel insignia on his collar tabs, a confident stance, head tilted as he studies the loft. Richter isn't frenzied, he's methodical. He's dismantling Bellini's advantage with the patience of a craftsman. Richter says something to his men, then gestures toward the loft door. They're going inside. They're going to take the birds. Bellini's heart hammers. He signals, 2 fingers to Morrow, then points at Richter. Morrow nods. Knox inhales, steadying. Bellini signals Rossi, flank right, cut off retreat. Rossi's eyes are murderous. Bellini brings his rifle up, the stock snug against shoulder, sights aligning on the German holding Lupi. He doesn't want to shoot near Lupi's head, but if he doesn't, Richter takes the loft, and Lupi dies anyway. Slow, later, off camera. Bellini squeezes. The shot breaks the morning. The German holding Lupi jerks and collapses sideways, still clutching fabric for an instant before his hand opens. Lupi falls forward, gasping, then scrambles like a man waking from a nightmare. Richter spins, fast, shouting orders. Germans snap into cover, rifles barking. The farmyard becomes a storm of muzzle flashes and shattered stone. Rossi's men hit from the right, forcing 2 Germans back from the loft door. Morrow and Knox fire from the left, pinning Richter behind a low wall. Bellini runs, low and fast, straight toward Lupi. Bullets crack over the dirt. Olive leaves explode. A round smacks the stone near Bellini's ear, and he feels the grit spray his face. He reaches Lupi, grabs him by the webbing, hauls him behind the wall. Lupi's face is swollen, lips split, eyes wide with shock. "Lieutenant," Lupi chokes out. Bellini grips his shoulder hard. "Can you run?" Lupi nods, jerky. "Then run when I tell you." Richter's voice cuts through the firing, closer now. "Bellini!" Even in combat, Richter makes it personal. Bellini peeks over the wall. Richter is behind cover, but he's shifting, trying to see. His men are disciplined, alternating fire, attempting to push Bellini's small force back by rhythm and pressure. Bellini realizes Richter is buying time for someone else, for reinforcements. And Bellini can't stay here long enough to trade bullets with a man like Richter. Not with a wounded Marine, Marinelli, bleeding out in the ditch behind them. Not with the loft full of birds that will panic at explosions, slam into walls, injure themselves. Bellini looks at the loft door. Inside, you can hear it now. Frantic fluttering, the soft percussion of wings against wood. The birds know. Bellini signals to Doyle. "Incendiary?" Doyle fumbles a pouch and produces 2 small incendiary charges. Improvised, ugly, the kind of thing engineers hate and infantry loves. Rossi appears at Bellini's right, breath ragged. "We can't take them all," Rossi says. "Too many." Bellini stares at the loft. He thinks of every patrol that survived because a bird made a helmet tilt. He thinks of the German note tied to a leg like a noose. He makes the choice anyway. "Burn it," he says. Rossi's face tightens as if struck. "Lieutenant." "Burn it," Bellini repeats, louder. The words taste like ash. Doyle sprints, crouched, to the loft wall under covering fire. Knox lays down sharp, controlled shots to keep German heads down. Morrow fires in bursts, forcing Richter to stay behind rock. Doyle slaps the incendiaries against the loft's wooden frame and yanks the igniters. A hiss, then flame, bright and hungry, licking up old wood like it's been waiting years to burn. Inside, the pigeons erupt into a chaos of wingbeats, a sound like rain in a tin roof. Bellini's chest constricts. He didn't want this. He wanted a clean war where cleverness saved lives without cost. Richter shouts, furious, and breaks cover, trying to rush the loft. Rossi fires, and Richter dives back, just in time. The Germans return fire in a savage burst. A bullet catches Santini in the shoulder. He spins, falls, then drags himself behind cover, teeth clenched. Marinelli screams from somewhere behind the farmhouse as someone moves him, the pain tearing out of him despite his effort to be silent. The loft's roofline begins to smoke heavily. Flames crawl into the interior. Lupi stares at the burning door, choking. "They'll die," he whispers. Bellini's voice is hard, because if it isn't hard, he'll crack. "Or we die later." The smoke thickens, then something miraculous happens, something Bellini didn't plan for. A side panel, weakened by age and war, collapses outward with a crack, and pigeons explode into the air. Dozens, a gray swarm surging up, wings catching sunlight, spiraling and scattering in every direction like shrapnel made of life. For an instant, both sides hesitate. Even Germans look up. Even Bellini's men look up. Richter looks up too. And in that involuntary reaction, eyes tracking movement, Bellini sees the opening again. The same principle as always. He grabs it. "Now!" Bellini roars. "Withdraw! To the drainage!" Rossi hauls Santini. Morrow and Knox cover, stepping backward in practiced rhythm. Doyle grabs Lupi and shoves him toward the ditch. Greco helps Marinelli, who is barely conscious now, face slick with sweat. German fire surges as Richter realizes what Bellini is doing, but the birds, wild, panicked, keep pulling aim off target in tiny, deadly ways. A machine gun stutters from somewhere farther up the slope, reinforcements arriving too late to be clean, soon enough to be dangerous. Bellini is last again, backing away, firing 2 shots to keep Richter pinned. Richter shouts something, and Bellini hears it even over gunfire, pure rage. "You will run forever." Bellini doesn't answer. He retreats into the drainage cut with his men, smoke from the burning loft rolling over the farmhouse like a funeral cloth. They run downhill until lungs burn and legs shake. Only when they reach a deeper fold of terrain does Bellini stop and count heads. All present, except one. Santini is alive. Marinelli is alive, barely. Lupi is alive. But one man is missing. Corporal Eddie Morrow. Bellini turns, scanning uphill through olive trunks and smoke haze, and sees a figure moving alone, running in a way that is not running away, but running back. Morrow has turned around, toward Richter. Bellini's stomach drops because he understands what Morrow has seen that Bellini hasn't yet. If Richter survives today, the trap that learns will keep learning, and the next time it won't be a loft, it will be Bellini's men. Bellini's legs want to chase. His lungs want to collapse. His brain wants to deny what his eyes are telling him. Corporal Eddie Morrow is moving uphill, alone, back toward the farmhouse smoke, back toward the gunfire rhythm that's starting to settle into something more organized. He runs low, smart, using olive trunks and stone stubs as cover, but he's still one man against a ridge network. Rossi grabs Bellini's sleeve, hard. "He's gone mad." Bellini yanks free. He saw something. Rossi's face twists. He saw death. Bellini's gaze locks upward. Through gaps in the trees, he catches a flash. Morrow's hand signal, quick and sharp, not meant for beauty. 2 fingers, then a jab downwards. They're setting up. And Bellini understands what Morrow understood first. Richter won't chase blindly. He'll anchor a gun on the drainage cut. He'll put a machine gun where the slope forces men into a line. He'll turn this withdrawal into a harvest. Bellini's mouth goes dry. If Richter establishes that gun, Marinelli won't make it 50-50 meters. Santini, bleeding and pale, will drop. Lupi will die after surviving captivity for a crueler reason, because Bellini couldn't outthink a man who learned. Bellini snaps his hand up, halt, and signals Knox. Cover me. Knox's eyes widen. Lieutenant, don't! Bellini doesn't argue. He grabs 2 grenades from his pouch, 1 fragmentation, 1 smoke, and pushes uphill after Morrow, moving like a man who has decided fear can ride in the back seat. Rossi hisses, furious, and follows anyway, because Rossi's loyalty is the kind that feels like a curse. They close the distance in broken bounds. Bellini smells smoke stronger now, burnt wood and feathers. The farmhouse is a black smudge behind drifting haze. The loft's remains hiss and crack, embers collapsing inward like a dying lung. Morrow is crouched behind a low stone wall, breathing hard, eyes fixed on the slope above the drainage cut. He looks back when Bellini and Rossi drop beside him, and for the first time all morning, Morrow's face shows something that isn't fight. Regret. Lieutenant, he whispers, they've got a gun team coming down. 2 men, belt-fed. They'll set it right on that rock lip and rake the ditch. Bellini peers through a gap in the stones. He sees them. 2 Germans moving with that careful, purposeful gait. One carrying the gun, the other the ammunition box. Behind them, a 3rd man, Richter, moving with them, rifle up, head turning in small, precise angles. He's not running, he's shepherding. Richter pauses, studies the drainage line below, and points. The gun team changes direction toward the exact rock lip Morrow predicted. Bellini swallows. How long? Less than a minute, Morrow says. Rossi's voice is tight. We can't win this here. Bellini doesn't answer. Win is not the goal, not anymore. Delay is. Disrupt. Break the pattern. Bellini pulls the smoke grenade pin with his teeth. The metal tastes sharp, and tosses it high toward the gun team's approach. The canister bounces once and starts hissing, pushing a thick white cloud into the German's path. The Germans freeze, then shift, trying to skirt it. Bellini throws the fragmentation grenade next, not at Richter, but at the ground behind the gun team, where the rock forces them forward. It lands, rolls, and detonates with a violent crack that echoes through the terraces. One German collapses. The other stumbles, half falls, then scrambles for cover, gun awkward in his hands. Richter dives flat, then pops up behind a boulder with the speed of a man who survived too much. Gunfire snaps immediately, German rifles responding. A round slams into the stone above Bellini's head, spraying grit into his hair. Another smacks the wall near Morrow's hand. Bellini fires 2 shots, controlled, not to kill, but to keep Richter down. Morrow fires 2, short bursts, forcing the surviving gun carrier to hesitate. Rossi leans in. Now we run. Bellini shakes his head. Not yet. Rossi's eyes flare. What do you mean, not yet? Bellini points with his chin toward Richter's cover. Richter. Morrow's breathing is ragged. You want him dead. Bellini doesn't say yes. He doesn't need to. The word hangs there anyway. Because as long as Richter is alive, this won't end with a single escape. It will continue. Next ridge, next valley, next patrol. Richter adjusting, Richter counting, Richter learning the birds, learning Bellini, learning how to turn cleverness into a liability. Bellini watches Richter's position. The German's helmet edge appears, then disappears. A patient man, probing. Bellini hears something else now, faint, distant, but unmistakable. A fluttering rush. Pigeons, not dozens this time, a few, maybe 5 or 6, circling above the ruined loft, confused by smoke, trying to orient by instinct and memory that has been violently interrupted. They loop, then drift towards the valley line. Richter's head tilts upward, just a fraction. Men react to movement, always. Bellini whispers, barely moving his mouth. Rossi. When he looks. Rossi's rifle is already shouldered, his cheek pressed into the stock. He's been waiting for permission the way a blade waits for a hand. Richter looks again, tracking the birds for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat he exposes just enough of himself, just enough of a face under helmet shadow. Rossi fires. The shot cracks, clean and final. Richter jerks backward out of sight. Bellini holds his breath, waiting for the shout, the return fire, the movement of a wounded man crawling away. Instead, there's only a sudden, strange pause in German fire, like the entire enemy element has inhaled at the same time. Moro's eyes are wide. Did you? Rossi doesn't answer. He cycles the bolt with a hard motion, eyes cold. Then German voices erupt, angry, panicked, overlapping. A man yells Richter's name. Boots scramble. Bellini feels a grim relief, but it doesn't last. Because killing the hunter doesn't kill the hunt. It just changes its shape. Bellini grabs Moro's shoulder. Go, now, back to the drainage. They break from the wall in a low sprint, moving downhill as bullets snap after them. Someone fires too high, rattles. Someone else fires too late. They reach the drainage cut where Knox and Greco are waiting, rifles up, faces drawn tight. Lupi is crouched beside Marinelli, trying to keep the wounded man conscious, whispering frantic encouragement. Santini's shoulder is wrapped in a filthy bandage, blood seeping through in slow pulses. Bellini drops beside Marinelli. The man's eyes roll, unfocused. His breathing is shallow. Rossi barks, "Move!" and the platoon surges downhill again, dragging, carrying, half lifting the wounded. Their boots churn mud and wet leaves. Above them, the Germans are no longer methodical. They're furious, and fury is dangerous in a different way. Less precise, more reckless, more willing to spray bullets into the ditch. Bellini hears the first long burst of a machine gun. Another one, opening somewhere uphill. The gun team Bellini disrupted wasn't the only one. So Richter's plan survives even without Richter. The drainage cut becomes a corridor of snapping rounds and ricochets. Bellini's stomach knots. Because now the question is no longer whether they can outthink one hunter. It's whether they can outrun a system. The drainage cut narrows, walls rising on either side, forcing the platoon into a tighter line. That's when Bellini feels the trap's true cruelty. Terrain doesn't care who wins. It only offers shapes. And men put weapons into those shapes. A machine gun chatters above, high left, raking the ditch's mouth. Bullets chew bark from an olive trunk and punch into wet soil, throwing up dark sprays like water. "Down!" Knox shouts. They press into the ditch wall, bodies packed, breathing in each other's sweat and fear. Marinelli moans, a thin sound. Lupi clamps a hand over Marinelli's mouth gently, not to silence him out of shame, but to protect him from being targeted by sound alone. Bellini looks ahead and sees the ditch bend around a rock outcrop. If they can reach that bend, the gun's angle breaks. It's only 20 meters. In this kind of fire, 20 meters is a lifetime. Bellini scans for options. Smoke? Gone. Grenades? Low. Artillery? A wish, not a promise. He looks upward through a jagged slit of sky between branches. And there, faint, moving like living ash, are the pigeons again. A handful, circling, searching, then committing to a direction with sudden certainty. They're heading away from the farmhouse, away from the ridge, away from the gun, toward open valley. Bellini's chest tightens. He can almost hear Richter's earlier taunt, "Your birds cannot help you now." And he realizes Richter was wrong in one way and right in another. The birds can still help, but not as tools Bellini controls, only as chaos the enemy can't fully predict. Bellini makes a fast decision. He pulls a small signal flare from a pocket, one of the last. He snaps it to readiness, then looks at Knox. Knox understands instantly, eyes widening. "You going to draw it?" Bellini nods. "To the ridgeline, not the ditch." Rossi hears and grabs Bellini's arm. "No!" Bellini's voice is low and iron. "If that gun keeps this angle, Marinelli dies here. Santini dies. Lupi dies. All of them. We need them to lift." Rossi's grip tightens, desperate. "Then I go." Bellini shakes his head. "You're the only one they'll still follow if I drop. Keep them moving." Rossi's eyes flash with rage at the logic, but logic is a weapon too. He releases. Bellini inhales once, deep, tasting mud and cordite. Then he rises, just enough to be seen, and fires the flare up and to the right, toward a spur above the ditch. The flare streaks, bright and unmistakable, and bursts into a harsh red bloom that stains smoke and branches. German fire stutters for a fraction as eyes lift toward the new light. Bellini uses that fraction and runs, up the ditch wall, scrambling into thorn and loose stone, exposing himself on the slope like a man stepping onto a stage. The machine gun snaps towards him. Rounds crack past his ribs. One punches stone near his boot. Another tears through a branch above, showering leaves. Bellini keeps moving, angling right, away from the platoon's line, pulling the gun's attention like a magnet. Below, Rossi shouts, "Go! Go! Go!" The platoon surges toward the bend, dragging Marinelli, carrying Santini, pushing Lupi forward. Bellini glances down and sees them move, and relief hits him so hard it almost makes him stumble. Then a bullet slams into Bellini's shoulder, hot and shocking. His arm goes numb instantly, slipping the rifle. He hits the ground hard, breath knocked out, dirt filling his mouth. For a moment, the world becomes only pain and sky. He rolls behind a rock slab, pressing his good hand to the wound. Blood is already slicking his palm. He forces himself to breathe, slow and deliberate, like he told Marinelli. He hears the machine gun continue firing, then falter, shifting back toward the ditch, searching for targets again. Bellini's flare bought seconds. Not enough. He needs one more disruption. And then he hears it again. Wings. A cluster of pigeons drops low, started by the flare and gunfire, and sweeps across the spur where the machine gun is set. The gunner's silhouette shifts, tracking, annoyed, reflexive. Bellini smiles, thin, bitter. Even now, men look up. Bellini uses his good hand to pull his last grenade. He can't throw far with one arm. He doesn't need far. He needs close enough to force the gun to stop firing for a heartbeat. He pulls the pin, counts 2, and lobs it blind over the rock toward where the gun's muzzle flash has been strobing. The grenade detonates with a dull thump and a metallic clatter, shrapnel striking the gun shield or nearby rock. The machine gun stops. Silence. Sudden. Shocking. In that silence, Bellini hears Rossi's voice further down, shouting orders, keeping men moving, keeping the line alive. Bellini hears Knox's rifle crack, measured, covering. He hears boots, sliding, scrambling. They made the bend. The angle broke. Bellini exhales, a broken laugh that turns into a cough. Blood flecks his lips. He tries to rise, but his shoulder screams. His vision blurs at the edges. A shadow falls across him. Bellini looks up and sees a German soldier standing above the rock, rifle aimed downwards. The man's face is young, eyes wide. Not Richter, never Richter. Just another piece of the system. The soldier shouts something in German, voice shaking. Bellini doesn't understand the words, but he understands the shape of the moment. Bellini raises his empty hand slightly, not in surrender, but in a quiet, almost tired acknowledgement of what war is. Then, from below, a single rifle shot cracks. The German above Bellini jerks, staggers, and collapses out of sight. Rossi appears a second later, breathing hard, eyes blazing, face streaked with sweat and dust. He drops beside Bellini and grabs him with brutal gentleness. "You stubborn bastard," Rossi snarls, voice breaking. "I told you." Bellini tries to speak, but only a rasp comes out. Rossi hauls him up anyway, half carrying him down the slope toward the bend, toward the platoon, toward cover. Bellini's boots drag. His good hand claws at branches to help. As they stumble into the safer fold, Bellini sees Marinelli ahead, still alive, eyes half open, breathing shallow but present. Lupi is beside him, whispering again, tears cutting clean lines through dirt. Santini is moving under his own power, jaw set. They are battered, but they are together. 16th time. Another ambush avoided, at a cost that feels heavier than numbers can hold. Bellini leans against the ditch wall, sliding down, fighting darkness. He hears artillery in the distance now, finally, thumping toward the saddle line, delayed thunder shaking the valley. He imagines German guns relocating, men cursing, the ridge swallowing them again. Rossi crouches close, voice low. "What now, Lieutenant? No loft, fewer birds. Richter may be dead. What now?" Bellini's eyelids flutter. Through a slit of vision, he sees a single pigeon land on a branch above the ditch. Alone, calm, head bobbing. It watches them with that indifferent animal gaze. Bellini finds his voice, thin but steady. "Now," he whispers, "we walk like the mountain is listening." Rossi holds his gaze, then nods once, the motion heavy with understanding. Above them, the pigeon lifts off, wings beating cleanly into the valley air, and disappears toward whatever it still believes is home.